Hey, I'm Joey Durmire, and I am here today with the Global City Mission Podcast. I'm very excited that today I have with me Dr. Jared Looney, our Executive Director. And back in September, Jared had the great opportunity to travel to Seoul, Korea, and participate in the fourth Lausanne Congress, which is a very exciting experience for a lot of people, and I know it was for him. And he spent the last several months sort of thinking through and processing some of that, and actually been challenging us as an organization with some of the things that he came back with. And so we decided that maybe a great opportunity would be to take a few minutes here on the podcast and just sort of hear some of the experiences he had, some of the thoughts he's had, some of the things that we're wrestling with now as an organization. And hopefully that's helpful for maybe some other people as well. Maybe it sparks some interest and get some other people thinking about some of these things as well. So, Jared, welcome. Glad to
Yeah,
have you.
yeah, it's great. It's
Yeah.
great to be in the conversation again.
Yeah. So, why don't we start here for those who maybe are not very familiar with Lausanne or anything about that? Why don't you start by giving us sort of an overview of what it was, what it was like, and sort of that sort.
Yeah, you bet. So it was truly a gathering of the global church. It was only the fourth Lausanne Congress that has happened. It's called Lausanne because the first one was in Lausanne, Switzerland, um, and uh, and the first one, from my understanding, the history, and hopefully I don't get my Lausanne history wrong here. But my understanding of the history was that first one was almost entirely made up of Westerners.
Hmm.
And this one had 202 nations represented. I know that might sound funny to someone who knows the official count of recognized nations in the world, which is more like 195, but there are several other nations that are not necessarily recognized by the UN, and so but
Right.
get counted by others, and so they did the alternative count, and it's so there were representatives of unrecognized nations or territories as
Gotcha.
well that were at this. It was 202 nations represented. Again, only the fourth time for this gathering. The first one was in the early 1970s. I want to say 1972. Um, give or take a year, but I believe the date's 1972. And that was a global gathering where Ralph Winter stood up and gave a talk on the concept of people groups. Up until that time, missions kind of focused on reaching nation states. We go and reach
Hmm.
this country, and that really changed strategy. I mean, it really turned things on its head. It controversial. There's lots of debate about it, and there's issues that are warranted debate, but there's also it also was a positive shift in a lot of ways. We're not just looking at national borders; we're looking at peoples,
Yeah.
and so. He stood up and he gave that speech, and a lot of people caught that vision, and it really changed a lot of how we do missions for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
And so, this is a pretty significant gathering that takes place. It also it was really cool being a part of something that was truly so representative of the global church, because despite what it was in the 1970s, today this really was people coming from every nation under heaven. um and one of the cool things was we had a sense of community, even though it was a large gathering. It was 5,000. And you have to be nominated to participate. You're nominated, you're vetted or curated, and then then this is the people that come. And so it's a fairly large gathering, 5,000 people, but you really weren't lost in the crowd that much. I mean, there I actually knew some people there, but also I had an assigned table. So for all the plenary
Hmm.
sessions, I was sitting with the same group of people, and the countries represented were the US, India, Singapore, Egypt, and Poland. And
Wow.
so it was really cool to be able to have that experience, sharing with everybody. This was really a gathering taking place during what has been referred to as kind of the emergence of polycentric missions. The word being used a lot in kind of mission leadership circles and missions thinking is polycentric. and that means simply that, there's not just one center of mission sending. It's not, you know, no, it's no longer just the West to the rest. you know,
Gotcha. Yeah.
it is now really lots of different parts of the world, lots of different peoples and nations, different churches that are sending missionaries to various parts of the world. And it's from north to south, from south to north, east to west, west to east, and people are really sending all over the world. There's still a lot of mutuality and kind of equity that needs to take place for the global mission to be truly polycentric. It's something that's still emerging and being worked on.
Right.
But you could really sense that we're stepping into a new era at this point.
Yeah.
It's also a really multi-generational digital age. There was a whole section set up of foreign ministries that are pursuing digital ministry, everything from social media to gaming to Bible translation using gaming, and so that was definitely felt. How you sometimes you have those worship services that have somebody like painting a picture
Yeah.
while there's some worship and singing and stuff or preaching going on. They had that, but with a VR headset, doing
Oh,
a thing.
yeah.
And it would go up on the screen, while
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
worship band was playing all stuff. So it was interesting stuff. So I had that table, but then I also participated in what they called a collaboration gap. And that meant they're bringing people together around, I want to say there was 25, if I remember correctly, but 25 different themes that are still considered significant gaps in global mission. In other
Mm.
words, just not enough is happening. There's not enough work being done. A lot more thought is needed in these areas. And so I was in the gap referred to as people on the move.
Gotcha.
That's things like diaspora ministry, migrant, international student, all those kind of categories of people on the move, globally. And again, my table for that was, countries represented was Canada, New Zealand, Kenya, a New Testament professor from Kenya, from a seminary there in Nairobi, a Black American missionary serving in Ghana, a Chinese missionary serving in the UK, and a
Mm.
West African missionary serving in Boston. so, so it was a really dynamic gathering, and really representative of how mission today really is everyone going everywhere.
Yeah. So, real quickly, before we get into some of your thoughts, as you were talking, I'm thinking about some of the people maybe who are watching. So, um, you just touched on some of the people that were there, but is this a gathering of basically just a lot of people or pastors there or lay people? Like who? I know you have to be invited, but what is kind of the makeup of people who are coming to this event?
Yeah, it really was pretty diverse. They had different languages and different translations happening throughout. There was definitely church leaders. There was mission agency leaders, organizational and parachurch leaders. There was teachers and educators. There was people from the marketplace and the workplace. And
Mhm.
so, one of the guys at our table is a leader of the basically the Evangelical Association across the nation of Poland.
Mm.
But another guy at our table is a veterinarian, who serves in various ways, serves within his vocation and serves the community and is a leader in the church there in India. And so you really had a lot of vocational diversity, leadership diversity, international diversity,
Mm.
denominational diversity, certainly.
Right.
So there was a pretty broad representation.
Yeah. So it's kind of the meeting of the minds coming together to really think through the future of missions and the current realities and how do we adapt, where are we missing, and
Mhm.
to try to answer some of those questions. Great. So
Yeah, and
for
it was.
you,
Oh, sorry.
no, no, no. Go ahead. I
Oh,
was going to
yeah. I
say,
mean, it was, and to be, it's probably helpful to note that they did a pretty good job, I think, of having us in dialogue. I really enjoyed the dialogue at my tables, both people on the move and then my group in the plenary sessions. But certainly the themes are also being set by leadership. I mean, just like any kind of big conference or gathering like
Yeah.
this, each day had kind of a theme that was being discussed and talked about. And I think those were really well thought out because they really all the themes they addressed did feel like they were timely in terms of the era of missions that we're in.
Yeah. So I know for you, you enjoyed your time. You really came back and have spent several months now, really just thinking through, processing, God stirring things. So
Mhm.
let's talk about some of those key reflections for you about that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, so there's a few things that I've just kind of continued pondering and thinking about. I wouldn't say incredibly new thoughts if you've kind of been in the kind of the mission strategy world for a while, but definitely reinforcing, clarifying, and pushing into the nuance maybe a little bit more. One thing that is really, really clear that has been talked about for at least the last couple of decades, but just really is showing itself not only statistically but being in the room. you know,
Hmm.
is the majority of the mission force in this century and who knows, beyond is going to be from the majority world.
Right.
This idea of polycentric mission, there's a shift that has taken place where, places like the UK and, United States, Canada, I mean, these countries, they're still sending missionaries from the West, certainly, but there is a vast missionary force coming from the majority world.
Right. So,
Man, listening to people from all these different countries and different leaders, that I mean,
yeah.
that's clear.
So, majority world meaning everyone other than us, right? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
basically not the West. It's like
right,
South America, Africa,
right,
Asia,
right,
not the
right.
West.
So, which is definitely something that we've, I mean, as we've just encountered as a missions agency, we're um, it is becoming harder and harder to find some of those places that are really sort of mobilizing people into the mission field. And it seems like a lot of the interest we get now really is from the East. It's from the majority world.
Mhm.
It's coming from other places. People who want to, who have been raised up and who feel the calling of mission,
Yeah.
right? And so, I know that's one of those areas that it is a paradigm shift, especially for American agencies who are used to raising up Americans and sending Americans.
Yeah, that really is the flip side of this, right? So you see this kind of desire for mission and to engage in mission in a lot of the majority world church, and then I know speaking about here in the U.S. And I've talked to a number of different leaders of other organizations and mobilizers as you do, Joey, and
Yeah.
and the word is unanimous across the board that it has gotten harder to mobilize American Christians to mission.
Hmm.
That has gotten more difficult, and so that's the flip side of this equation. And one of the things that continues to resonate with me is there was a missionary to Europe from Brazil, who was Brazilian missionary to Europe, and she was speaking, and she said she was really kind of calling out the church of every continent and kind of prescribing, kind of a word to them based on where they are, to rise and to do that, and to just to engage. And her word to the American church was don't shrink back,
Hmm. Yeah.
and I think that's an appropriate word for our time. I think there's definitely some shrinking back because of frankly quite appropriate feelings of guilt about colonialism.
Sure.
That's not but that shouldn't cause us to shrink back from actual gospel mission,
Yeah.
and really contextualize mission. And we've learned those lessons, but that doesn't mean shrink back. And she really had a strong word saying, don't shrink back. And so
Yeah.
that continues to kind of resonate with me as we go forward.
Yeah. And I think as one who also leads in the church, it's challenging to us and to me to say, okay, well, one, how are we in our own communities locally, have we set aside missions for something else, right? Are we
Mhm.
focused on other
Yeah.
things?
Yeah.
But then also it becomes one of these questions of like, well, how do we even change the way we think about spending for missions? Because again, we're used to supporting this American organization to send instead of what if we're starting to think differently and go, well, what if we're now looking to say, let's support other missions that are
Mhm.
bringing, moving majority world people, so
Sure.
it becomes a new way to think about it.
Yeah.
So what are some other things that you noticed? I know that was a big one.
Yeah, one of the things that continues to really hit me, and I just had some time of, I think while I was there, just like honestly, very privately in my hotel room there in Seoul, there in Incheon, like just having time of confession and repentance in my own heart, following the time of just listening to Michael O deliver a message on mission collaboration.
Hmm.
And he said this. He said the most dangerous words for the mission of the global church are, "I don't need you."
Hmm.
And that stayed with me
Wow.
because how often, without saying it, do we behave like, does our actions say, "I don't need you, I got this"?
Yeah.
How often are ministries territorial? How often are we just trying to kind of, I don't know, take the glory? Look what we did on our
Yeah.
own. We did it. And just that word came back. And again, that Brazilian missionary to Europe, she really pointed out, she said that there's these two temptations. She says the temptation for the Western church might be to maintain control. And that
Hmm.
is in a form of I don't need you as well.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
temptation for the Western church to maintain control, but because of this history of colonialism and because of the pain that comes with it, the temptation for the majority world church will be just to go it alone and say, okay, forget you guys, we've had enough.
Yeah.
And really calling us to say, no, we have to stay in this together and we have to learn to collaborate together. And so this has really been challenging to me. Just examining my own heart,
Yeah.
as we go forward, and just thinking it needs to be about, the mission above the gospel, the mission. I mean, God's
Yeah.
kingdom above all other considerations.
Yeah, I think about the posture that of humility, right? I mean, from another way is I think we in the West have been for years so used to we're going somewhere and teaching people how to do stuff. What
Mhm.
and now we've got so many of these majority world workers who are doing some really amazing things.
Mm.
So what if it's less of us going and saying we're going to teach you how to do missions, and more of us going and saying teach us how you're doing missions, and teaching us how you're connecting with people because
Yeah, and I
maybe
would take it a
things
step farther and really shoot for real mutuality, and say, let's teach one another. Now,
right.
good
Yeah.
corrective for those of us in the West where we're kind of used to, kind of being in charge, and that
Yeah.
control. A good corrective is maybe listen first, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it's not to say that people in the West have nothing to teach and everyone somewhere else have everything to teach. It's that we both have things to share, that there really
Yeah.
is this need for really a polycentric mutuality. And that's a mouthful, but
Yeah.
but there really is a need for that, I think, and to not necessarily give them the temptation to be in control, but also not to give them the temptation of like, okay, our turn, forget you guys, but for
Yeah.
everybody to really be in mutual dialogue, mutual learning, mutual collaboration together.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the neat things about what Lausanne allowed to happen, right? It
Mhm.
allowed people from different places to come together and begin to start have those dialogues with one another. So, and again, I mean, I know there's more stuff. What's something else
Yeah.
that's just really working with you?
Yeah. Another key thing that I think is really important, and I think was really, really insightful that they did was 1/3 of the participants that came to this gathering were actually from the workplace, as opposed to being employed
Hmm.
by a church or ministry. Um, Now we're saying that's important, but obviously you and I are employed by ministry.
Right,
but,
right.
and I
Yeah,
would say I think that needs to continue. I think that's still important. I think being able to have people that are able to are empowered to focus all of our time and energy, into the strategies and the thinking and reflecting on ministry and taking action in ministry. I think that's important.
yeah,
However, the clergy laity barrier historically has really probably been one of the obstacles to a lot of mission taking place as well.
hmm,
Holding people back, maybe kind of a sense of, we see in the church sometimes they kind of outsourcing ministry to the people on staff,
yeah,
and as opposed to just really being proactive. And so I just continue to go back to Ephesians 4:11. I mean, those of us that are in this role where we are able to give kind of full time and attention and energies, really our role is, and kind of taking that from Ephesians 4, is to mobilize the whole body of Christ. Like, we're there to help
right,
equip. And
yeah,
it's not like the mission of people that are, quote, in ministry, and then everybody else is, I don't know, doing in the bleachers or whatever. But no, it's like
right,
everybody is on mission, and it's mission in our vocation, it's mission in our neighborhood, it's mission through our ministry structures. It's is that we are all on this mission together. And I think that's an area where the certainly the church that has any history of Christendom, any kind of historical institutional church coming, via Europe and the Americas. I think that that there's a lot of work yet to be done, and
yeah,
breaking down those barriers, and really seeing, okay, we've empowered some people to kind of give this full time attention. That role is to equip, and the mission belongs to the whole church. I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done there. And so I thought it was really insightful that not only did 1/3 of the participants come from the workplace that were at this gathering, but there was a significant portion of time during one of the days on stage that was dedicated to the workplace and to being on mission in the workplace and living out the gospel in those spaces. And they had people from various vocations on stage. And I was trying to think of the last time I was at like some sort of church leadership gathering, some sort of mission gathering, and maybe it just says something about what I go to. But I was trying to think of the last gathering that kind of gave it that kind of attention and kind of holism, and I couldn't think of one.
yeah.
Now again, maybe that just says something about what I go to, but I think that was something that really important to take note of, and I think that's an area where a lot of work has yet to be done, and breaking down historic barriers, and really all of us owning it. All of us being on mission together.
Right. And of course, not to toot our own horn, but that's definitely an area that we're trying to figure out it's definitely on our
Absolutely.
list of like stuff because for us, mobilization is more than just, hey, getting somebody on our team. We're
Yeah.
trying to be proactive about really equipping, helping ignite the passions of the people in the church from everywhere. And so much. So, one of the, I think for us, especially, that's an important piece of what we're doing. We definitely, like you said, we're still looking for those people who want to be full time, but almost also those people who can sort of be full time as well as be full time mobilizing other people,
Mhm.
and trying to launch
Mhm.
really a wildfire fire of people.
Mhm.
And I think as pastors too, I think some of us need to start thinking about like what really is ministry, and what really is, just sort of admin work, and where
Yeah.
do I want to spend my time, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So something else, some
Yeah.
other things,
So
yeah,
as I mentioned, I was in the collaboration group on people, the collaboration gap group,
yeah,
addressing people on the move. And of course, that's been a major theme for Global City Mission
right,
we've worked a lot with, different kinds of migrants, refugees, international students, all kinds of people that are on the move or that have landed in our cities from other parts of the world. And so that's been a major theme for our ministry. And so that was a group I participated in.
yeah,
And it really was just very affirming and confirming that this is only going to continue. This is a major trajectory in kind of, I don't know, global civilization. And it's not just kind of the shift in the 20th century of people kind of from Europe, especially Europe and a few other places coming to the Americas. It really is
Yeah.
everyone going everywhere at this point as well. That
Mhm.
it's just people from all over the world going all over the world. And a lot of it too, there's a lot of internal migration. I mean, growing up in the States, I mean, I like my family moved from Ohio to Texas when I was young. That just is called, we just call that moving, but that's
Yeah.
technically
Yeah.
internal migration. I mean, you're moving like halfway across a continent, and
Yeah.
so you see that a lot too in various parts of the world. If you start counting internal migration, the number gets a lot bigger. And
Yeah.
that's actually significant in parts of the world that have been very rural, that have just been urbanizing over recent decades, because now that internal migration is really stirring things up and causing a lot of change.
Yeah.
And there's regional as well, like people that would go like from Congo to Kenya, from Uganda to Kenya, and things like that. That
Yeah.
just it's very regional, which that's like going from Mexico to Texas. And it's cross borders, but it's within the same region, as well as people
Yeah.
that go like from Bangladesh to New York across the globe. But it's only going to continue. I mean, look, I think whatever happens in public policy in various countries around the world, this is something that is enabled, it's empowered by modern communication technology and modern transportation technology. So unless that technology breaks and we lose it all, you know,
Right.
some major event,
Yeah.
unless something like that happens, people are going to continue being on the move, and people are going to continue staying connected.
Yeah.
And so this is a major theme, I think, in missions. I think it's a growing theme. My
Mhm.
understanding is they only added this as a collaboration group at the 2010 Lausanne gathering in Cape Town.
Mhm.
So it's kind of, it's a new arrival in terms of kind of mission strategy thinking and mission leadership in the last few decades, and it's only going to continue here in the U.S. Joe, you've been working a lot on working to see a South Asian initiative from Global City Mission take place in the Metro Atlanta area. That's something we continue to work on, and are building partnerships around
Yeah.
that and working on that. Well, in the U.S. right now, there's projected 5 million people just from Indian background. That's not counting Bangladeshi, Pakistani, et cetera. Just 5
Yeah.
million people from Indian backgrounds. The projections are in the next 25 years, that'll grow to 25 to 30 million.
Yeah.
And so, people are on the move, and that's only going to continue.
Right.
I think another area that is going to continue to develop um, is just digital technology. And it was good to see that is on the radar of mission leadership.
Yeah.
I also have attended Missio Nexus. That's a conference in the U.S. for mission leaders. And so I've gone to workshops that are led by people in different kinds of digital ministries. But at Lausanne, it was really fascinating. They had an entire section set up of ministries doing digital type ministry. There's a group that are exploring, Bible translation through gaming.
Mm.
There's others that are trying to create gospel themed gaming things, and there's social media obviously is a big area. And so I can't remember them all, but there was just all these different ministries that are recognizing that technology is going to be very important.
Yeah.
The church really has to pay attention to what we might call digital context. What do we do in virtual space? And Kerry Newhoff said something during one of his talks online during COVID. He pointed out that a lot of churches were making the mistake of thinking that stepping in the digital space meant delivering content. Now, I would
Mhm.
suggest that content's still a thing, that's still a reality.
Sure.
And certainly people go online for content. But he pointed out that really to really step into digital space in a strategic way, the church needs to focus on connection over content. And
Yeah.
I think that's probably right. I mean, content is still reality, and you put
Yeah.
content out there, but increasingly, I think it's going to be about connection. Ironically, in a really digital era that we've been stepping into, I think we need to learn how to. I think the winners are the ones that learn how to be human in the midst of this. You
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so again, I think that becomes about human connection.
Mm,
Digital, it becomes it's a context to work in. It's a tool to utilize. It's a way to maintain connection and forge connection. And it's here to stay. Again, barring some apocalyptic event where we lose our technology,
yeah,
barring something pretty major happening, it's only going to increase and accelerate and continue.
yeah,
And so the church has to learn how to navigate this territory. And so I think that's also going to be a big deal. And they definitely paid attention to that at this gathering.
yeah.
And I think that's going to continue to be important.
Yeah, digital is so funny to me now. Technology in general is so funny to me now because you and I grew up in an age where the church, the most techie thing we had was like an overhead projector. Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and now the things that we have to consider is so grand and unique. And I do love that idea. Like that's even now starting to percolate in my brain. Like connection over content.
Mhm.
Again, there's going to be room for content, but
Sure.
how? But you're right. It's funny. People are actually using social media and other things for connection,
Yeah.
and so how do we begin to tap into that? And I also love that idea of like at the same time, how do we be human in a very digital
Mhm.
world, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of great questions, a lot of great things that we still don't have answers to, but we're wrestling with them, and I think that's the important thing, right? I think as the church, especially church in the West, we can either do one of two things. We can either step into this stuff and wrestle with it and try to find the answers, or we can bury our head in the sand, and
Mhm.
that would be the shrinking back. And so remembering that the mission that Jesus put us on a long time ago is still there. Go in all nations, make disciples of all nations. And so that means wrestling with questions and trying to figure answers. And I think, God is honored when we're willing to wrestle with those things instead of just sort of bury our head in the sand and go, no, I know what I'm doing. So it's an interesting thing, but I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us today. I thank you for sharing some of these insights with us. Like I said, for those of you who are watching, this is an ongoing dialogue that we have internally, and I'm sure at any time we gladly will continue to share some of these things as we sort of continue to answer these questions ourselves through the podcast. You can always check us out. More episodes to come. But for now, that's going to do it for us today. Jared, thank you for sharing with us today. Thank you for taking a few moments and letting us talk about it. And for the rest of you who are watching, thank you for taking time with us today too. We look forward to sharing more content with you in the future. And so we'll be signing off for today and say goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.